is all about delinquency control. And some of the things that we're going to talk about are kind of also a little bit of a review. But certain areas, we have a lot of different types of aging reports. And on the aging reports, how they're presented is based on the different reports. And so I encourage you to go and look at the different reports that we have. This one I just pulled up here was an aging 120. And if you look, this one will show the account number, what type of an account it is. These are owner accounts. Remember, everybody has one owner account. But here's one that was a sub-account as bankruptcy, so it's showing on here. And so that's the way you'll know if it's the owner account or one of those sub-accounts. Now, the next column is where they are in your collection process. And this label is defined by you. And then, of course, it has their name and then, you know, an aging as far as what their balance is. So the first thing I want to cover is where do you put in this information here? So this is going to be found in Setup, Program Defaults. It's going to be on the Code tab. Under the Program area, you do the drop-down and you would select Delinquency Status. As all of you have new databases, when you go there it will be completely blank. So what you're going to want to do is just click in this first cell and put in the different statuses that you would like to see on your aging report. So I have some people who'll just put something like this: first letter sent, second letter sent. They might put, you know, review, notice of default. So whatever you want, so that when you pull up that report, you can see, or the board members can see where you are, what letters you sent, or whatever your process is to collect the money. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. Now, after that, you're going to want to create your delinquent letters. And you do your letters exactly like we covered any other letters that you might do. You'll go to Reports. You'll go to Merge Letter Editor. And when you open the folder, you would go to the file that says Collections right here. And then you can go ahead and pick one of our letters and then make changes to it to fit your collection process. Now, remember before you do that to go up here into the ribbon, say Copy Template, and then give it a new name. So that way you don't make changes to the original template in case something goes wrong. That way you have one that hasn't been edited to go back to and use again if you'd like. Now, after you put in your statuses, you've created your letters, we're going to go set up the procedure. So I'm going to go to Setup, and I'm going to go to Property Setup, and I chose the one that we've been playing with recently called Treasure Go. Now, right here we have name. You can call this anything you want. You can, you know, some people call it collections, late fees, whatever you want. So I'm just going to say I'll just say collections. Okay. Now, the next one is the process. So what we do, if you do the drop down, we have 4 processes. We have a late fee balance here, we have collections, and we have account balance. Those are labels that you are going to define what they mean. So easily, if I said late fee balance tier 1, I'm saying that if I go over into accounting and I look at my AR posting code, this is the column that is late fee tier 1. So if I have people, or I have unpaid balances or unpaid invoices on a homeowner's account, and right now I only have 2 of these charge codes checked, assessments and capital contributions. So if I wanted my, if my homeowner has a balance of, say, $120, and the $120 is made up of late fees or fines, the software, once we go set up our rules, is going to skip them, okay, because it's not of the LF fees. Then we have another one that's called Tier 2. So sometimes someone might say, well, we charge a late fee for this on the 1st, but we charge one on the special on the 15th, and so they needed another level, and that's what the LF2 is. Today we're just going to really talk about LF1s. If you, or Tier 1s, if you have really unusual situations, we can handle just about anything. So just let me know, and either if it's if your setup might benefit everybody, we'll cover it now. If not, then I'll meet with you one-to-one and we'll cover that unique situation. So if you go and run late fees and it says you have no company to process, you know that there are charges that weren't paid and they should have got a late fee, one of the first things I would suggest is to come back, make sure that you have one of these columns checked, okay? So that the software, nothing's, then it's not going to look at any unpaid balances, okay? So this is the first line of defense. Make sure you have something there checked. Now, going back to delinquency control, the other one are rules you can apply to it. And I'll show you in just a second what I mean by that. I'm going to charge owner accounts only, so not bankruptcy accounts, not special assessment accounts, or any of those others. If you wanted to charge late fees to any of those subs, you have to set up a rule for that one. Inactive is this box here. If you no longer want to use that collection cycle, then you would not, then you can check that one right there. And then right here will tell me after I process when the last time I processed there. Now, how often, period, do I want to bill? So I want to bill everybody monthly. So I'm going to put monthly. Now, that doesn't mean what do I bill in assessments. What do I bill for late fees? So if you have a community that bills a late bill only once annually, then that's going to be annual. If you have someone who does it quarterly, then it would be quarterly. So on this example, we're going to say they get a late fee every month if they have an unpaid balance. What day of the month are they considered late? So if they have 15 days grace period, on day 16, they will be considered late. So the day that I want to assess a late fee will be the 16th. I can even go and divide it between communities if I want, but this is going to be the whole property, so I'm going to leave it there. Now, the last row says begin amount, and we have percent of assessment. So the percent of the assessment, if I went over and I looked at what I was billing the homeowner. So let's go to the billing. So we're billing $120 a month. So some people's rules will say if they have equal to 1 month. So you could come in here and you could put $120. If they owe $120 or more, they should get a late fee. Well, I really don't want to have to change this every time they increase their dues. So I could come under the percentage assessment value and put 100. So if their balance, no matter what the rates get changed to, is 100% of the assessed value for that month, then they would get a late fee. This really works well when you have an association that has different rates for different people. You know, they're based on the percentage of interest or assessed value. So this will be 1 month. Now, I had someone once call me, and the homeowner owed, let's say, it was $100 what they billed, and they owed $119.98, and he wanted to know why that homeowner was not included. And I said, well, because you have 100%, and it's literal. You know, computers are going to take exactly. So if you want to make it 90% or 80% or 200, whatever you say here, that's the calculation that we'll use to determine if that person is going to get a late fee or not. So I'm going to put 100%. Now, this one is percent factor. Somebody asked us to put that. So basically, if I put a percent and I to a factor of 2, then it would multiply that by that percent amount, and that would be how it defined the account balances. Then you could say up to a certain amount if you want. So go up to X amount. Now, what I find some people will do is they'll have a collection process, and they might say, okay, this one is going to be 0 to 100, so they're going to make another one. I'm just going to call it reminder, and it's going to be monthly again, and it's going to be the 16th. And what they might say is, if they owe a penny up to an ending amount, and on this one I'm going to just put $119.99. $119.99. So I could put a different set of rules. You like how they put 33 instead of? I could do a different set of rules like these. When I might do a set of rules that say I'm going to charge them, I'm going to send certain letters out. This one I'm just going to send one letter to remind them, hey, you owe. You're not getting a late fee, but you need to bring your account current. So that is another reason for maybe having a different process, because you're going to have a different set of rules that you're going to use. Any questions about that? Okay. The next one right here says close, and I have, there's never close, there's always close, and then there's close except hold. So I tend to put always close. If my homeowner's account that I sent out a late letter to and they got a late fee, account drops below whatever my threshold here was set to, the software will automatically close the cycle. So if they got letter 1, it would close it. If they paid their account, it would close it. And then the next time they were late, they would get letter 1 again. If I say never close and they pay, it's still going to have an open, it'll show 0 balance. They won't come up the next month to get a late fee, but 6 months or a year down the line, if they're late again, they'll get letter 2. So, because it kept it open as an open issue. So, if you want them to close without you having to manually close them, if they bring their account current, then you want to put this to always close or close except hold. So if you put somebody on hold, it won't close it. You'll have to do it manually. Any questions about that? Okay. The next one is account balance right here. Open. So you have a choice here of open charges. Sorry. Open charges, current month, exclude current month. So open charges would be, it doesn't care when it's looking at the history of their account what month that came in. It's going to say if any of them are LF fees, they exceed the 100% of the assessments, they'll be used in the calculation. If I say current month only, it's only going to look at the billing for that month. So if they owed from a prior month and then this month the amount of the balance was less than the 100%, then they would be skipped. Or if it was, equal to, then they would be charged. And the other one is exclude current month. And normally when I see people use this one, and what it was attended to is the association has a 30-day grace period. So on that, they're going to charge on the first of the month. So what they wanted to do is not look, in this case, for September, but if they still owe for August, then they need to be charged. So if you have one of those where they get billed and they're going to get charged late fees for the prior month, then the account balance analysis would be exclude current month. And I'm going to choose open charges here. Now up here we have, for all the charges, a default for anyone you set up that it'll automatically go to. So that doesn't mean I can't override it, because I can. And then how do you want it to distribute? You can say I want it to always print, I want it to email and print, or I wanted to email, and if it doesn't have an email, then print. So email or otherwise print. So if it doesn't have an email, then it would print. So right here, you'll say how you want that distribution to be. So, okay. Any questions about this top section so far? Okay, so these are my rules. This is how, I want it, my default. Oh, also, of days to avoid on new accounts. So if you want to say, well, we're not going to give anybody a late fee or a letter for the first 30 days, you can put 30 days or whatever days that you want to include. Now, when you bring a property in or when you have a new homeowner, what it does is it puts in on the account maintenance screen. Let me show you. I'm bringing it up. Okay. So if you were to look, maybe. Okay. If you go over here to the Billing Options tab, we have a occupied date. If this occupied date, let's say my rules said that they would be late on the 16th, and I put give them 30 days, this person wouldn't be included because it's 30 days from this start date. If I go in here, let's say they close today and there's a balance on their account, because it's after, it's not going to show them because the billing date was on 9/1. So it was for anybody then. So the occupied date is the date it's going to look at to, determine. If I forgot to do August, let's say, and I'm just going back and doing August, well, they were August 31st. They get skipped. So it's going to be looking here to say, okay, was that person a homeowner in this community at the time that this fee should have been assessed? Now, so that you can avoid there, post liens. If you put somebody in lien status, and normally, unless you set it up in the process, you manually do that by going to delinquency down here, and there is a box. You'll see the letters that if you check right there, it will not only turn your account red like that, but then it's in lien status. The software will not charge late fees to anybody in lien status unless you tell it that it's okay, and you would check that box right there. Okay, so as a default, it doesn't charge late fees to people in lien unless you check the box. Okay, so I got my rules. Now I'm going to go through the process. So collection letters, my first header. I'm going to do the drop down. This will show you all the collection letters that you have created in the Merge Letter Editor or any of the C1 report templates. So you come in here, you pick the first letter that you want to send out. So I have here a courtesy late notice. I'll choose that one. Then it says repeat. So if you only send this letter out the very first month and then you're going to go to another letter the next month, you only want it to repeat once. If you send it out 2 times and then you go to another letter, then you can put 2. So I'm going to leave mine at 1. I want it to send this letter. I want it to mark that account. I'll say first letter sent. Okay. Then I'm going to expand this, and I'm going to come down here, and I'm going to put in the charge code that I want to charge the homeowner. So if you have late fees, interest fees, or whatever fees, they'll need to be on the AR posting codes. So here's my late fee. And then you have a choice to make it a percentage of LF balances, a percentage of account balances, or a fixed amount. So I'm going to make this a fixed amount, and I'm going to make it $20. Now, if you charge, let's say I do an interest fee, and the interest is going to be of the account balance. And then I could say it's going to be 8.33%. You could say, and I'll a lot of California ones do this. It's $10 or 10%, whatever's greater. So if you had something like this was late fee, you could put that, you could put 10%, and then you could say minimum of $10. So if 10% of their balance was $5, because I have a minimum here, it's going to do $10. And then you can even put a maximum. Once again, it defaults to open charges because I have that here. But if you want it to be based on maybe the interest just on current month only, then you can change that. Okay? Now, once I do my first letter, there's some other boxes here that I could check, like do I want to put them on hold? No. Do I want to mark them in lien status? No. Do I want to lock them out of web? No. Collections in sync, or as if you have an in-house collection company, none of you do. Certified, does this letter need to go out certified so it knows to queue up a statement? And then this statement box here, it flags them to run a, that you can print in a statement. Okay, and then if you want to do a label, so this is a certified label, but this label is just our normal label. And then if you do e-distribution for like South Data, then you can also tell it to export to a South Data file. So we're going to be real simple on this one. We're just going to have our letter, the name of our letter. We want it to repeat one day at a time, first letter. Now, you're going to see this one, it says days. This is used if, and I have this happen in the DC area, there's a couple collection companies that have units in public housing, HUD housing or something like that it's called. So they have, on the 5th day, they get a late notice. Then 10 days after that, so they put this to daily, then they say, 10 days after that, it goes to this letter, and then another 10 days after this, it goes to another letter. So you would only use this day is if you're escalating something, usually on a daily thing that you're saying, okay, we might send out 3 different letters in 1 month. Do any of you do anything like that? Okay, now that's easy. So that days you don't need to worry about. Okay. The next month, if they're still late, I want them to get escalated to the next letter. So you would choose the letter that you want to use, and okay, and then I can say the status, second letter sent. I can come in here. Now, every time with each one of these letters, you will need to put in your late fees. So $20, and then interest. And you can see I can do more than one. So if you have something like once it goes to the attorney, you charge a flat $250 on the account, then you can add that as part of when this letter renders. I want this to happen. Okay. So after this one, I want it to go to my final letter. So I'm going to come grab my final letter. Okay, here's a final one. And then I'm going to put my status, whatever one. It could be notice of action needed, I'll put. Some people, before they send them to the attorney, will have to get permission from the board, so they don't want it to escalate. So I'm going to, right there, this one I do want a certified, so I'm going to check those. I'm going to put the fee. Okay. Now, you might go after this part and say, we don't send any more letters. And until the board tells me, I just want it to say action needed, and then I will flip it to whatever it needs to be, but I want them to continue to get interest. So this time, I'm going to say no letter. I'm going to go repeat 9999, which is like 99 months is 8 years, so it's a long time. Late fee, I'm going to put my charges here, 10%, and then the interest, and account balance, 10%, $10, and current charges. Okay, now, this is kind of, then you can go ahead and later on switch it to whatever action if you changed it, or you can come in and you can have ones that you say are at the attorney and make them 99. So when you flip them there, then, and maybe at their attorney you don't do any more fees. So these are statuses that'll stay because they're so long, big, until you manually change them or they close because their balance went below the $120. Now, once they're here, let's say if they're at the attorney, I might want to put them automatically in lien status, and I might want to lock them out of the web. So by checking here, you can achieve that. Any questions about this flow? Does it make sense? No, it doesn't make sense. It does make sense. No questions?
No questions.
Okay. So I have my basic rule here, and now we're going to go. Now I have account maintenance open, and because I've made changes, I need to close it and come back in. So I will tell you that delinquency control is probably the one thing that we get the most questions about. So if you have any situations that are, really unusual, please feel free to ask us. We're more than happy to help you set it up, So
how do you guys deal with, like in California, this is not my forte, I'm sitting in on this because Mike is in a meeting, but it seems as though we're not, once we get to a certain stage, like a lien, we can't email that, but we would want to email the previous correspondence. So how do we go about doing that?
Okay, so as soon as I finish this part of it, we'll don't forget that, Sarah, so that I can show you. All right?
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Okay. So I went to Delinquency Control. There's two tabs here, Process and Maintenance. We're going to start at Process, and we're going to go to our options. So it says, who do you want to bill late fees for? So we're going to do residents. And then remember those types that I created? I said you can go down and say Tier 1, Tier 2. You can say all here, or you can say specific, I just want to do this one. That's up to you. The reason why is if some people want to do all of them and all their associations at one time. Sometimes you want to do them one at a time. It's really up to you. Now, if you would like to look at the letters before they print, you have to check this button here. If you don't, when you say process, it'll charge the fees that we told it to charge, and then it will print to the printer or email whatever you had set up those letters. But if you want to edit them before you say go ahead, and especially when you first start, you want to make sure. Okay, set post date. So I think I put that as the 16th, but let's say it said the 10th. If this is checked, it's going to put it for what I said my late date was, which is the 10th. When right now it's the 16th, but it would put the 10th. If it's unchecked, it'll put today's date. And most people, even if they didn't get around to doing their billing yet, want to go in there and have it billed to the day it was due. So if that's the case, you want to check this button here. If you want it to be today's date, uncheck it. The most misunderstood question is this one here, grace days. So in my setup, if I had selected my late date was the 10th, my grace days here would be from the 10th of the month to today's date, in this case it would be 6, is how many days I wanted to go back in the software and look at any property that I haven't processed. Now, if it was, I was trying to do August also because I didn't get to it, then I could put a bigger number like 30 or something like that. It doesn't, it's not what you put down as their grace days, like 16 or whatever. It's just go back in the, I'm telling it, go back in the software, and any property in the last 30 days that I should have processed but didn't, I would like it to appear so I can process those late fees. Okay? Now I haven't closed these periods, which is why they're red, but and Treasure Cove is the only one that can, but it doesn't mean I can't do those. So I could go like this, and okay, I want to do these 3 properties. So I'm saying go back 30 days, whoever I haven't done, these are the properties that I want to see, and then I go and click on the review tab here, and then I'm going to click review. So now it's going to go in here and it's going to look at those 3 properties, and it's going to assess based on my rules who should get charged a late fee. So here's the first property, Ashburn Farms, and I expand there, and there are the list of people that are delinquent. One of the things I want you to know, all of these are really late. So all of these are on the level at the attorney, the level, okay? Let's see what this one looks like. This one, okay, so sequence. Some of them are late for the first time, so they went and got letter 1. Some of them are on the second letter. We've already sent letter out, so it brought him to letter 2. Some of them are now at letter 3 or at the attorney. And so it will know what you sent out the last time, and it will escalate them to the next level. Do you see that? So based on the history of that account, so this Jones, last month he got letter 1, so now he's getting letter 2. The ones that are on letter 1 are just because this is the first time I've ever sent the letter out. Now, our Treasure Cove is brand new. Everybody is on letter 1 because they're brand new, okay? Now, we see that I have balances here that are really high. They probably might be at the attorney. We took this property over, or your other software, you've already in that collection period. So if you look at the headers here, you're going to see there's one called account balance and another one called late fee balance. So I'm going to click account balance, and it will sort them in that area. So if this one here, balance is $18,000, I'm going to do a drop down here, and I'm going to say at the attorney. I'm just going to put them at that level. This one here, same thing. I'm going to say at the attorney because this is where I started. So the very first one you do, you may need to go in and change where you are in the collection process. Okay? Now, so I just kind of randomly am going over here, and I'm going to put these guys in the second letter and then some of these in the third. If you look, so Mr. Brown is late. He's going to send out the first letter. If I expand this right here, it'll show me the fees, how much it's going to charge. If I want to skip the fees, I can go like this. It will print this letter but not charge a fee because I checked this right here. If I want to skip them all together, I can go like this, and it'll skip the letter and the fees. Any questions? Okay, so I want to do all these letters. So I'm going to take it. So I'm just going to do a couple. So we're going to skip some people. So there we go. Oh, wow, there's a lot more than that. Okay, so once you are happy with your selection, then you have to come up here and say process, because I could have more than one property, and let's say I don't want to do these two here. I'm going to say process here, and then I'll say process. I could say print, and it would print what was on here so I could look at it if I needed to, but I'm going to just say process. So the first thing it's going to do, it's going to produce a report for the charges, and that's called an adjustment report. So it's going to show me how much I charged in each of the fees, and then it's going to bring up my letters so I can edit them. Okay, these are my letters. If you go to Window, you can see the name of all of them, so you could just kind of go in and out to look at them. So here's the letter, tell what their balance is, and of course, you can highlight, maybe them bold that you might want to. So most of these look like they're pretty similar in letters. Then go to File, Print All, and send them to the printer. And then when you close it, it will then save this letter as a PDF on the homeowner's account. Earlier today I did this, and it was like, zip, done. So I can tell we have a big class because the GoToMeeting slows it down. I also got a supersonic router this weekend. Any questions while this is doing its thing besides the email one from Sarah? Come on. When it's all done, it will cross it off just like this. Now, if you went to the Maintenance tab and we pull up our property, there are our homeowners. If we expand it, there's the letter. We can go right here to letter and pull up the letter so we can see it again. We could reprint it if we needed to. You can come down and write notes. Now, you can also, when you're talking to the homeowner, so the homeowner calls, and I think it was this one. Okay, if you go to their delinquency tab, you can see, I'll close this so you can see better. There it is. You see the first letter, and if you expand, you can go in and pick it up. You can write notes. Now, if they called and you wanted to, because in the next letter, the next process is due. If they don't pay by the 16th of next month, then, and the software closes, then they will be escalated to the next letter. If you're going to extend their time, all you have to do is come down here and move the date out, okay? So you can move the date out like that. If the software didn't put them in lien status, then you can do it yourself if you wanted to put them in lien status, going like this. Or take away any of the privileges like this. So you always have the ability to escalate. Now let's say I skip someone that I wanted to get. Then you can just come in here and you can do it manually. But if you do a letter manually on the delinquency control, so if I was going to come in here, let's say, and send out the second letter, I'm going to come down. And, it won't do the charges. The charges only get done. So I selected my letter. If I came over here and said, okay, I want to see the letter, it'll say, letter not found, you want to create one. So now it's going to go in and it's going to create that letter. But it didn't charge. Okay, so remember, you can make another letter, you can, move ahead that way, but if you wanted to charge them and do the letter at the same time, it has to be done under the Delinquency Control tab. Does that make sense? Okay. Sarah, remind me about the email. So you have someone who has a big balance or has a balance.
So when you were doing the different steps, so it said at the top like email and print, but that seemed like it was for all of the steps. So you had to email and print the letters for all of the different steps.
Okay, so that one was saying, let's say if I went over here on the contact and they had an email. So I could choose for the software to print a hard copy for me or to email only. And so if they didn't have an email, that's all I was going to get. Or I could have it email, and if they didn't have one, print. So it would automatically do it for you.
Which makes sense, but once we get to a certain stage of the delinquency process, we have to send out everything certified, and email we can't send it by email. So how would we change that to where it won't send it by email and it'll just print it so we can start doing our certified?
So at a specific level you want it to?
Yes.
Okay. You know what, I'm going to need to ask one of the girls in the office that is the guru, because you can do e-distribution per level, but there's not one that says, well, actually you could. I could say, if this was my one, I could say here to print.
Okay, so then in the top level, like on the top where it says distribution, we would just say print only and then either check e-distribution or change it to say.
You could say this one, and then you're overriding this level down here.
Okay, so those checkboxes override it. All right.
Right.
Okay.
And then another thing, once you do, let's say they call and a homeowner, oops, sorry, wrong box, entry. On the iExpert, I'll say Treasure Cove right here. Now, I am going to clear all, today's delinquency batch right here. Okay. Now, you can do it right on the homeowner's account, too, on their iExpert. But I can go in, and when you see the letters here, if they have an email address, you could click right here and then email that letter directly. So if you didn't choose email before and you had the person on the phone and they wanted you to email it, enter the email address, then you can come right here and you can email it to them.
Okay, that's helpful. Okay? Thank you. You're
welcome. So that gives you, and then again, like I said, if you're on the homeowner's account here and you go to the iExpert there, this is just going to be their stuff, okay? And then I can go in here and I can email it.
Okay, and then the other question I have is that on the in the homeowner's account, when you're manually generating a letter, it showed print certified, but does on the right-hand side, but do we have that on when we're setting it up? So if we know that all of our pre-liens are sent certified, do we have the ability to automatically do that?
Yes, so that was right here. So if I have a letter that, like this final, that has to go certified, see this header?
There
we
go.
Certified. Now, that means that when you go into Report Generator, there is a label called Certified Labels. And then, so we have one that just labels for the, it's certified and it's going to be a 5160 certified. And then we have one that is a certified label that is the little green cards. We have a template for that. Okay?
Okay. One more question on that. If we're sending it out to a third party like South Data, is there just a file that it would generate so we can send it to them?
Yes, there is. And if you are going to be using South Data for that, there's a few more steps that you need to set up, and you have to get a password and stuff from South Data for our server to talk to theirs. So if you're when you're ready to set that up, let us know and we'll help you do that. But the setup part, as far as, once you get the passwords and all that, is in your property setup. Right here, e-distribution, you just say export or export or print.
Okay. Okay, great.
Okay?
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions or situations of billing you'd like me to talk about? None? Dean, your office have any?
It doesn't appear so.
All right. So the nice part about this, like I said, is that it gives you the ability to escalate them and bill all at the same time, and it's pretty simple. The hardest one will be the very first one, because you'll have to know where you were in the collection process, like I said, to set those homeowners up. Now, if I go to Delinquency Control, and this is, like I said, you can see all your homeowners here at once, and I'm going to put my balances on top. So once I process them, see, now they're at the attorney, and so they'll stay there because I made them repeat 99999 every time I went through that cycle, okay? But anybody else will just get escalated to the next level. Like here's 3, or it's going to be 3 or 4 or whatever it needs to be. All right.
Okay.
All right, guys. That was it. That was pretty easy. You didn't have a lot of questions.
Sure, we'll have some when we get started.
Yes, I'm sure you will. So now, is there any questions on anything else that we've talked about recently that anybody'd like to go over from any of our trainings? That would have been our original class today, was just Q&A. So any Q&A questions?
Not just yet.
All right. Okay. Well then, Monday's class, I believe, is setting up our web groups. So especially you, Dean, since you plan on going live sooner than the other offices, please look at the reports and kind of get an idea. And we might even use your database to set up a report group.
Okay.
If that's okay with you.
Sure.
Okay. But that way you can you can see the process. We'll get yours, and then we'll record it for the other offices when they're ready to get their report groups up and ready.
Sounds
All
good.
right. Well, thank you, everybody, and I will talk to you on Monday, unless you email me and tell me you need some support beforehand.
Okay. Thanks very much.